We got to talk about the cage match. It happens at Unforgiven, and we see the Hardy Boys win the tag titles in a cage match here against Edge and Christian. And the rules were that the first team to get both wrestlers out of the cage wins. And it was said that a wrestler out of the cage wasn't allowed back in. Of course, we changed that, but whatever. We've wind up with a concerto. Edge is going to take a bump into the ring, and the Hardy Boys pick up the win. It gets 3.5 stars. But the very next night, they're doing a ladder match. It's the Hardys and Edge and Christian in a ladder match one night after a cage match.
Yeah.
This time in State College. The idea being this is going to be Edge and Christian's last shot at the title if they lose. And Edge and Christian get the tag belts back just one day later. You know, listen, I know a lot of our listeners didn't like this era where it felt like the belts were being traded back and forth every week. They wanted more substantial runs. We could see how excited people got when CM Punk went on a run with the world title. Later, of course, when Roman Reigns went on an incredible run with the title. People keep track of these sort of things these days. So in this era, it's sort of, you know, the hardcore title bouncing around and even the world title at times over in WCW, it could get confusing. I don't think people talk about this feud that way. Maybe it was because of the spectacular stipulations, or maybe it was just because of the chemistry between the Hardys and Edge and Christian. This is just great stuff, even if they are flip-flopping the titles.
Didn't matter why. The reason you watched and you enjoyed. I have a lot of respect for those guys in that. And you're right, Conrad. Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys had great chemistry. It's almost like they just could. I don't know if they, and I might be wrong here or naive. I was out at ringside or wherever doing some announcing, but I don't think they spent all day talking about their match. They had the tent poles, as the corporate boys say. The tent poles were in place, meaning, and they represented big spots. So they got their tent poles figured out when and where and how, why, and moved on. So, but they just had great chemistry. They liked working together. They were unselfish as hell. I think sometimes fans don't realize how important it is in a wrestling match to be unselfish. You got to sell. You got to give some to get some. And as you eat somebody alive and you beat them, who did you beat? Nobody.
Hey, so listen, man, there's a lot of criticism going around after these series of matches. We mentioned as a TLC at SummerSlam. A month later, we're going to see the big match at a cage match at Unforgiven. Lots of big bumps in there. And then the very next night, we're doing it again. It's a ladder match. And this is the crazy shot that we've seen a bunch, with Edge doing a spear high off a ladder to Jeff, who's just hanging by the rope that held the belts. At the time, Meltzer said they replayed it about 1 million times, and it'll probably be on highlight tapes for the next 2 years. I mean, this is a crazy bump, a crazy visual. And Wade Keller took to the torch to write about how this might not be the best idea. Less than 24 hours after a match filled with more spectacular high-risk bumps than any match in U.S. pay-per-view history, the same 4 wrestlers came out and put on another high-risk ladder match. With the bumps the Hardys and Edge and Christian took in their pay-per-view match, there's no way those 4 should have wrestled on Raw. It was a short-sighted move by the WWF, done so they could present a hot match against Nitro's main event, rather than properly selling what happened the night before. When Shawn Michaels fell off the side of a cage and fell through a ladder, it was talked about almost at a similar level as a WWF title change. It was a huge occurrence, worthy of multiple replays, discussions, and medical updates. When Mick Foley took his famous bumps off the top and through the roof of the Hell in a Cell, it was among the top stories of the year. But the WWF has conditioned fans, maybe never more so than this week, that when the Hardys and Edge and Christian take similar bumps, it's no big deal. And he goes on to say, the people's elbow ends matches, even though in Mick Foley's words, it's among the lamest, least harmful looking move ever to get its own name. So listen, there's a lot of criticism going around here that, hey, they don't have to be taking bumps like this. And this is a departure from the way injuries and the violence and the high spots have been sold. I think when people think about that now, they usually lob that criticism at AEW present day. Oh, these guys aren't selling enough or what have you. But this is from a long time ago in the WWF. Do you think this was the beginning of maybe doing too much?
Yeah. I don't know if it was the beginning or the middle or the end or the crescendo or whatever, but it was in that era that pure wrestling, and I would include brawling in that because brawling was such a big part of pro wrestling for generations and generations. Uh, but wrestling with, and working in and out of holes and targeting a body part and focusing on it for an extended length of time. The talents that didn't have the confidence in their own work to pull that off. So I, I just it was a mystery to me. They put their bodies on the line uh, uh, for normal course of business, and they were doing moves that were intended to be made special, seldomly used, but where they would draw that ooh and ah. And we started doing it every night, type thing, every TV show. It just things got a little loose, to be honest with you. I thought.
Let me ask you, when you think about the pay-per-view is a cage match, the very next night we're doing a ladder match, a lot of crazy bumps in both of those.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that was commonplace back then.
No.
And I know a lot of times whenever there's crazy stunt shows or crazy spectacles like this, a lot of the internet wrestling community is trained. They've almost become Pavlovian to say, oh, it must be Russo. But it wasn't. This is 2000. So he's not even there. He's in WCW.
Yeah.
Why do you think there was pressure we had a stunt show on Sunday night. Let's do it again on Monday. It does feel like maybe we would have sold the violence and the damage and kicked the can for another week or two, but we go right into it. Wade speculates that it's because we're trying to counter program Nitro.
Of course it is.
Okay.
What else could it be? It's all about ratings. And in this instance, when I say it's all about the ratings, the bigger the rating, the better for the network and for the wrestling competition. So it was strictly ratings driven, without question. It worked. Let's do it again. That's a short booking meeting.